So now that Tekken 6 is finally here, after 2+ years of waiting, I would like to honor it, and in honor and celebration of the new Tekken installment, I would like to make this list right now and count down the top 10 fighting games of all time. And as a matter of fact, this is actually, I guess according to Namco, it's been about 15 years since Tekken came out. You know, the original Tekken came out on the original PlayStation. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking at the Tekken 5 box right now, the disc cover or whatever. And this game came out in 2004. Now in the back it says, a decade of dominance. Because I guess Tekken's been around for about 10 years when Tekken 5 came out. And now it's been about 15 years now. The Tekken franchise has been around. And, you know, Tekken 6 is finally out. So, I mean, it's pretty incredible actually looking back on Tekken and the history of Tekken. That's 6 official games, you know. But actually they've had like at least 8 games, or 9 games in total. So, you know, the first Tekken, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, and of course Tekken 6, and plus an additional 3 games, which was like, you know, Tekken Tag Tournament, Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection, and the one for the Game Boy Advance, which was actually prior to Tekken 6 coming out for the Xbox 360 as well, along with the PS3. Tekken released this Game Boy version called Tekken Advance for the Game Boy Advance way back in the day. The top 10 fighting games of all time. Number 10, Mortal Kombat Deception. Wow, this is really one of the best fighting games that came out this decade. This was really a fine addition to Midway's legendary Mortal Kombat franchise, and well, this game is actually particularly great because it combined a lot of different styles and different elements of gameplay. It's not just a one-on-one fighting game. I think a lot of what carried it also was that, you know, it had other modes, such as the Conquest mode, which was very similar to something like Grand Theft Auto, mixed with like this action-adventure element where you're searching around looking for different items, trying to find different enemies and fighting different characters in the Mortal Kombat you know, franchise. And then it also had these other bonus modes like Puzzle Fighter and this chess combat, which essentially pits you in a chess-like environment. So it's very interesting, great quality, overall really a quality fighting game, one of the best fighting games to come out this decade. And not to mention, it's got some cool features as well. Overall, Mortal Kombat Deception, great job, Midway. You know, it's got all your favorite Mortal Kombat characters in it. It's probably the best Mortal Kombat game to come out since Mortal Kombat 2. Number 9, Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Alright, now Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was essentially the last Street Fighter game that Capcom released as far as the, you know, the generation, the last generation consoles, you know, the PS2. It really was kind of the final Street Fighter kind of related game pre-Street Fighter 4, and it's a great 2D fighting game. I mean, it's got a lot of different characters, a lot of combos, a lot of great visual 2D effects. It was nice to see that, you know, Capcom was still keeping the 2D element, the 2D fighter alive, and by bringing, also including the Marvel characters in there, which is an additional bonus, especially for American audiences that don't really have a lot of experience with Capcom characters. Really a great mix between the two, Marvel vs. Capcom. One of the finer kind of crossover titles they have. I do remember that there's a lot of flashy visuals, a lot of amazing like 2D cel-shaded graphics that still kind of get, you know, borrowed, and those elements are still influencing games of today like Guilty Gear and whatnot. But Marvel vs. Capcom 2, really one of the finest 2D fighting games that's ever been released. Number 8, Samurai Showdown. Now this came out in the early 90s. This was by SNK, and they put this out for the Super Nintendo. It was on a bunch of the systems, you know, Neo Geo. The SNK were really committed in trying to at least, you know, achieve the same level of success that Capcom had with Street Fighter 2. Now, Samurai Showdown, in my opinion, is really their finest fighting game that SNK has ever released. you know, it's the most original, it's got the most interesting characters, it's got great gameplay, it's got, you know, these other additions that really make it a unique fighting game. You know, it's one of those, it's one of the earliest really memorable fighting games that utilize weapons. You know, so this was before Soul Calibur, this was before Soul Edge. People were using, you know, swords and knives and machetes, and you know, graphically the game looked great, it sounded great. There's a lot of kind of this ambient, you know, Japanese style of music too. It really is a beautiful fighting game for its time. So Samurai Showdown, one of the best fighting games ever made. It's a must-have for pretty much any single 2D fighter fan. Now, number 7, Killer Instinct. Wow, Killer Instinct, do I even have to say anymore? Rareware, one of Rareware's finest video games, period. Now, Killer Instinct came out for the Super Nintendo and arcade back in the mid-90s. This is one of the old school type of games, but it took a lot of successful elements from other fighting games that came out before, like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, but it mixed it into a really nice, great looking package. It sounded great, the visuals are beautiful, 3D rendered, you know, animated characters. There's a lot of combos in this game. This is probably the first fighting game to ever have, you know, over 100 plus combos in a fighting game. Really, they went combo crazy with this game. Very, very accessible, very easy to pull off combos. You know, you really can't go wrong with Killer Instinct. One of the best fighting games to ever come out from the 90s. And we're still waiting. I'm still waiting for either a remake or, you know, Killer Instinct 3 or something. Now, number 6. Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. Now, Tekken 5 was already a great game that came out for the arcades and the PS2 back in 04. But they came out with an updated version for, it was a PSP and later on the PS3. It basically was a expanded remake, not a remake, expanded version of Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. It had like a couple of new characters, it had more stage levels, reworked music, etc. Very great game. It kind of perfected what Tekken 5 was lacking. It didn't have any boring modes like Devil Within. It really is an overall amazing package. Arguably the best fighting game to come out this decade. Tekken 5 Dark Resurrection. Amazing stuff, man. I mean, this is really arguably Namco's finest fighting game they've ever made. But number 5, here we go. Virtua Fighter 4. This is Sega's finest fighting game that they've ever come up with, because Virtua Fighter 4 not only revolutionized fighting games, what fighting games are now today, but they influenced, you know, Namco essentially. Virtua Fighter 4 was the first. They were the first to include, you know, ranking system. They were the first to include this customization system where you can customize and add, you know, different custom, you know, changes and little items you can add to your character design. Really great fighting game. Great music, great graphics, great training system. Virtua Fighter 4 really started off what Tekken 5 and, you know, the later Tekken games that you see now, Soul Calibur 4, Soul Calibur, you know, basically Virtua Fighter 4 started the, you know, the current generation style of fighting games, and it's still amazing to this day. It's still one of the best fighting games to ever have come out in this decade. Number 4.